Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, which is going to be all about how to embrace the future for museums, galleries, anyone with an interest in sharing information. I'm delighted today to be joined by Kyla. Hello, Kyla.
Hi, Louise. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Yep. Not too dreary here in Perthshire now. The rain has stopped, so we're all okay.
Has it? Yeah, it was really horrible here this morning as well. It was like winter and now it's sunny again, which is great. So we have a fantastic lineup for everybody. If you remember, we advertised this a couple of weeks ago and we said that we're going to be introducing one of our favorite examples, which is from Nebraska. So we're going to be taking a look at that. Kyla's going to be answering your questions in the chat, and also please do say whereabouts you are from. We just love to know where you are in the world. We can see people from Bulgaria, Finland, Scotland. We've got someone from Kansas, all over. So we're delighted that you could join us. And if you are watching the replay, we're equally delighted that you've taken the time to watch this webinar as well. So joining myself and Kyla is going to be Carly. I'm going to get confused with my K's and my ending and my C's, but we have Kyla and Carly is going to be introducing a resource that they've made in the museum, which is called the Stuhr Museum. And we always like to have a little giveaway on our webinars. So we are going to have a giveaway. And given the fact that there's not a huge amount of people joining us today, you've got more chance of winning. So all you need to do to get a free lucky access to this particular resource, which is all about the School Children's Blizzard, scan the QR code and complete your name and your email address on the form, and we'll be choosing a lucky winner later on in the webinar. If you don't want to leave your name in the form, that's absolutely fine. You can leave any name that you want to, but we do need to have your email address. So make sure you've got that. And I will follow up with an email not too long after the webinar as well. And also don't worry if you think that you're missing any of the links. We always send out an email to you after the webinar that's going to contain the link to this deck. It's going to have other web links and things that we mention along the way. So make yourselves comfy and we'll make a start, shall we, Kyla?
I've just put the short link in to follow. Sorry, ignore the long link that I put in the first time. It's the second short link to follow. If you don't want to use the QR code, that's another link to go.
Right, and we'll keep putting it in as well so that people can go back and hi from Leeds, Dan. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon as we wind up towards the summer holidays. So as you heard, we are going to be hearing from Carly from the Stuhr Museum, and I can't wait to hear what Carly's going to say about the resource that they've created. We are also going to show you some kind of breaking news, really. We've just today got confirmation that we can actually share with you some of the updates that ThingLink's going to be introducing over the next few weeks. And I cannot wait to share with you. I've been hinting about these updates because I'm really rubbish at keeping secrets. So I have to kind of remember to keep my lips sealed. But
these are the most exciting updates on the
everyone's going to love them. So in case, hi Julie from Toronto, a big welcome. We love our Canadian creators. And Gina talked about ThingLink at ISTE this week. Oh, thank you, Gina. That's amazing. Can you tell us any more about it? We'd love to know the vibe at ISTE. For those of you who are joining us, hello from Mexico. For those of you who are joining us and you don't know what ThingLink is, I usually just give a tiny quick kind of update at the start of our webinars. So ThingLink is a way for you to upload your images, your videos, your 360 images and your 3D media and make those media assets interactive with hotspots, and then you can just share them by link or embed into a website. Hi, Maria. And ThingLink has grown over the last 12 years since it was launched. And if you think about that ThingLink editor as our OG product, the oldest and the greatest, we've since then added additional products that help you to create mixed reality and extended reality types of experiences. So you can link all your ThingLinks together to create branching scenarios. And this is exactly what Carly's going to be talking about and how she's used it in the context of museums and living history. We've also created guided tours, which is a way to have single 360 images where you can simply guide your viewer through that experience with one single button to click, and the text in those guided tours can be used for audio narration as well. And then lastly, but no means least, we also have a Unity plugin, so that if people are creating games or digital twins in the monster 3D engine that is Unity, you can take a 360 snapshot in Unity, export it to ThingLink, and easily share your Unity projects. So think of those things as the suite of tools under the umbrella of ThingLink, with our editor being the OG. So that's just to give you a little bit of insight into ThingLink. I will be sharing these updates after we've heard from Carly. I knew I was going to get that messed up, when we hear from Carly a bit later on. So imagine that the year is 1888 and you are a school teacher, as many of you are who are joining us. But imagine it's 1888 and you are a young school teacher, and you are in your school, which is a small school in rural Nebraska. And you think that the weather's quite good as you're walking to school, so you haven't got your big coats on, or your big skirts, or your big trousers, or your big shoes. And you get into school, and then suddenly you realize that the weather is getting worse and worse and worse. And suddenly it gets colder, it gets windier, and you realize that this is now going to have a significant impact on the school and potential loss of life. What do you do as a young teacher? Well, Carly is going to tell us about how that real life event, the school children's blizzard, actually has turned into a resource that they've made for their museum. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for having me.
Did I do that justice?
You did. You have the suspense building, so I think everyone's on the edge of their seats to find out more.
Excellent. So, yeah, you are the creative director at the Stuhr Museum, which is in Nebraska. And, this has been your career, isn't it, in creating these wonderful creative experiences?
Yes, it's been a blast to work with ThingLink and see how it's been developing and to grow with it.
Excellent. So shall I give people a little taster from your website as to how that kind of experience has been presented to the audience? We have a little video here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Congratulations. That really is a way to capture people's interest in the work that you've created.
Yes, it's a really good kind of summary of what we've done with creating the school children's blizzard and utilizing the scenario builder. It's kind of intense, found some intense music for it, but I think it gives a good overall look at it.
So just to put it in a little bit of context, so and tell us about the museum as well. But you've created these wonderful experiences, and people can actually go to the museum and experience them in person. And these are educational resources where people can experience that virtually.
Correct. So the Stuhr Museum is in Grand Island, Nebraska, United States. So for those that may not know where that is, we're pretty much smack in the center of the United States. And we have over 200 acres of ground and over 100 buildings that we use to promote our mission of sharing the collective human experience of community building along the Platte River Valley, which is the area that the Stuhr Museum sits on. So a lot of the museum, we have art exhibits, historical exhibits, but we also have a lot of living history sites. So if you don't know what a living history site is, basically we have buildings that are from the time period that we focus on, which is mainly the mid to late 1800s and early 1900s. And people can go inside of these buildings and experience history and feel as if they were a part of it. And we have instructors and workers who will dress in period appropriate clothing who will be inside of these buildings so that people can truly feel like they're stepping back into the past. So along with having daily visitors, we also have a lot of field trip options with structured classes or self-guided exploration. And there's a lot of hands-on experience, and it's quite immersive with trying to get students to understand that history is more than just names and dates on a page or black and white photos. They were actual people, and we can still connect with that today. So when 2020 came along, like many organizations, we were looking for ways that we could offer educational opportunities virtually that still had some interactivity and some engagement. Obviously not the same as setting things up in person or making rope, but something that can still be a different level of immersiveness. Luckily, I had a college professor who knew about ThingLink, so she told me about it. And I instantly knew that that was going to be the perfect tool for us with how you can add tags and use 360-degree videos and pictures and text, and it translates. It did so many things that we wanted it to do. So we started using it back in 2020, and we made virtual options for our in-person classes. So we had the teacher talking to the camera as if it were a student. And it was something that we threw in videos and text, and we made teacher packages for, so that schools that couldn't come in person during that year still had a way to learn with Stuhr Museum with their students. And this was popular in 2020 and early 2021. But we found that once people were able to start coming in person to the museum, they opted for the in-person opportunity instead of the virtual one, which is fair. It makes sense. But so we knew that if we wanted to keep making virtual content, which we did, that it needed to be something different than the in-person classes that we had. It needed to be something that could be supplemental to your experience at Stuhr Museum, or something that could stand alone if you are never going to be able to come to Stuhr Museum on a field trip, and it would have all the information you need to learn from it. So we had a new education director come on board in May 2022, Emily Byerly, and it was something that she was very passionate about, that she wanted to make new virtual resources for the schools. And so I was tasked with kind of brainstorming, how could we do this? And to kind of refresh myself, I took the ThingLink certification course in December of 2022 just to see if it would spark anything. And it definitely did, because I learned about the scenario builder tool, which was fairly new at the time. So it allowed you to make branching situations. So if you imagine like a big flow chart where you can start with one option and then you can have choices, and then you can go either to choice A or choice B, and the content that you see is dependent on the choices and answers that you give. And I absolutely loved this because growing up, I read choose your own adventure books, which I don't know how many people have read those when they were growing up, but they're a lot of fun where they're written in second person point of view. So it says, you do this, you see that, you are given this choice to make. Are you going to choose option A or option B? And then it tells you what page to turn to in the book based on what option you pick. And I would read those things over and over again and pick different things each and every time. And I always thought it would be such a fascinating way to teach history this way, because even though we know the choices people made now, people were still going through the human experience of the emotions and figuring out how to choose and navigate and dealing with the consequences. I'm seeing a lot of people are relating to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were called, I think there was a series called Goosebumps that we might have had in the UK. I don't know. They landed on the US, but scenario-based learning experience, or sort of branching learning experiences, are used a lot in kind of like training materials, which is one of the reasons why ThingLink first started developing the scenario-based learning tool, so that you could decide on the skills that you wanted to train people on for, say, an emergency situation or a health and safety situation. So what you've done is you've taken that product of ThingLink Scenario Builder and just made what is a truly immersive experience, isn't it? So you've got your in-person, which is immersive, where you've got people in their costumes, but then you've created that immersive learning experience by using the scenario builder, which is just awesome.
Yeah, because you can teach about history by saying there was this person and they did these things. But as students become more and more removed from history and that kind of empathy part of it, they're losing that human experience, that they had the full range of emotions that we do today. And these decisions, they were heavy decisions. And in the situation we talk about, they were life and death situations. Because with the school children's blizzard, we picked that to be the topic of our scenario builder because it was a situation that people had to make choices in. And it was luckily a very heavily documented and reported on story at the time of all these different teachers that chose different things. And there were 3 teachers in particular who were all young women. Some of them were teenage women. And they had to choose what to do with their students. Do they send all of their students home? Do they keep all of their students with them? Do they send the oldest students home and keep the youngest? So we knew that these women made 3 separate choices, and the results were dependent based on what they chose. So we were very excited to move forward with this, and it plays off of, we have an in-person class at our rural school. So yeah, you're showing the kind of what it looks like when we go through that. So with going forward with a scenario builder, tips I would give are to make sure that whatever you're doing it on, you have a lot of information and documentation about, especially if you're coming at it from a historical perspective, because you don't want to be doing guesswork about, well, I think if they picked this, that this kind of thing would have happened, so let's go with that. But you need to have either some kind of compilation of actual real life situations that people went through to know what those choices would result in. And I would also recommend that if you are going to do the scenario builder, once you have all of your information kind of put together and you're ready to move forward, I would recommend drafting it out. So I'm going to show you what my kind of draft looks like.
I think that'd be really helpful, because people love seeing the finished result and think, oh, that must be hugely complex. You know, how did you plan it out? So please do go ahead and share your screen, and I'll switch it over to yours.
Perfect. Okay, let me see if I do this
I
correctly.
was just laughing at these pictures of the blizzard. I know we shouldn't be laughing at them, but you know, it's just so great that you have these pictures. And living in Scotland, it's actually funny because there are pictures not too dissimilar for this in some of the small villages in the Cairngorms National Park area where we are.
Yeah, it's funny how these very specific situations are still universal, and it's when you go into those specific situations that you find the universal aspects of it.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's something that we try to highlight a lot at the museum. So let me share what this looked like. All right, can we see that?
Yeah, I'm going to add it to the screen now. Oh, brilliant.
All right, so I used Microsoft Word for my flowchart, but we can kind of see that it's just a very basic draft where we started everything with one kind of journey, and then there was one main question that split it off into three. And then each of those three branches ended up at one person that they could learn about. And some of those stories had happier endings than others. Yeah. But even though the scenario builder is very easy to use and very intuitive, I would still highly recommend making some kind of visual graphic for you going forward so that you don't get lost, because there are so many different things you could do. So you don't want to overwhelm yourself with your excitement about doing one option or doing another. So I would recommend.
Sorry, can I just very, very quickly just show people? So when you're in the scenario here, and then you click the proceed button, you get some little text, the text boxes. But when you get to the questions, you've put the questions in the text box, but then you've got the pop-up that enables people to choose what kind of act they would have done or what they would have done in that decision, so that it takes them down that path. So you've made those kind of question blocks, but you've mapped out every possible journey that people could go on depending on what decision that they took.
Yes, and I, like someone said in the chat, like a Padlet would be good too. There's also Miro or Mural. Any of those graphic organizers, honestly, you could probably use Canva too. You could use pencil and paper. Really, whatever works for you in order to make sure that you have all of your chickens in a row and you are ready to go and all of your information is complete. That's going to help you so that you don't go into making it and then overwhelm yourself with what you could do in your excitement. So I'll switch this over from looking at what my draft looked like to what the scenario builder actually looks like on the back end for you. So we can see at the top that we have our main options, and then that's where it branches out. So I expanded what that draft was and made the text break down into multiple blocks so that there's not too much text per page, because we're making this for 4th through 6th grade level about. So we didn't want that to be overwhelming with how much text for anyone. But you can see that it's really nicely laid out visually, where it has lines going between everything. It has dotted lines to show that if you pick one option, it'll take you over to here. And to add different things, there's a plus button, so you can add media, branching, question, text, goal, and jump to anywhere. And you can also edit very easily and go inside of any of these and change what that text looks like in a second, and add a timer or a label or clone them or move them. So there's a lot of the features that are in the classic editor of ThingLink that are really intuitive, and they've been added to this back end of the scenario. So I personally had a breeze and a lot of fun working with the scenario builder.
That's amazing. And to see it like that transferred from paper and pencil, or, you know, how you did that in the document and then actually build it, you found that quite an easy experience.
Definitely. And what's nifty is then at any point you can go in and start previewing what it would look like for the user. So let's take a step inside of it.
It's going to make that big.
So we used Canva for all of our and for the moving snow. So Canva is also very nice to use, very intuitive. It has some nice integrations with ThingLink, so I would highly recommend it. We had a good time with that. And as she was kind of showing before, something we did before going into the actual scenario that I feel like is also very important if you're wanting your information to be accessible to people who have never been to your site before is throwing in that background knowledge that is needed. So showing what the school children's blizzard looked like, showing what people wore back then, because it's different than how people dress today. And as they go through the story, their imagination is going to start filling in the blanks that you don't explicitly lay out for them. And so you don't want them to start imagining people wearing exactly like what we wear today, because then they're going to be building the wrong picture and not having the correct schema for that. And we also throw in what rural schools were like, so showing how they were quite small. And then we are lucky enough to have a rural school on our own grounds that we have in-person classes with. So we loved using the 360-degree image capabilities. We have a GoPro, so we were able to take a picture of the inside of our location, and you can tap different things to learn about different characteristics of the building that are focused on as you go throughout the scenario. So once again, we're doing what we can to make everybody on an even playing field, whether you've been out to the museum multiple times or you've taken this class in person, or if you've never heard of Stuhr Museum and have never been in a one-room schoolhouse, that we're setting you up to understand the story that you're about to be a part of. And then, as she was showing before, when you have different questions going forward, that then decides what happens. So these are what kind of like the text blocks look like. I feel like they're really nice with how you can add a picture so that it feels like you're reading an actual story. And you'll notice that, stealing from the inspiration of Choose Your Own Adventure books, we wrote all of these in second person. So it says, you slowly open your eyes and take a breath. You are surprised that the air does not feel as cold as you thought it would. We really wanted to make it so that it was an emotive experience and build that empathy to the user, to the person that's in history, where, you know, they may think that they have nothing in common with a school teacher from 1888, but feeling those different things and putting the sensory descriptions and thinking about how you would feel if you were in these situations and focusing on that human experience, it's going to build that bridge of empathy and make it so that you're not just learning about a two-dimensional person that died a long, long time ago that you never knew. But it's that human experience, and that's what's important. And we have then, like she was saying, that when you have your different options, depending on what you pick, that's going to decide your fate for the rest of the story. And once you go through your story, you actually get to learn about the person that made similar choices to you. So we were lucky enough to have access to actual newspaper articles about these women, reporting on their lives and what happened to them. But unfortunately, some of them have sadder endings than others. Some of them, everyone survives, but in one of them, the teacher does not survive. And in another one, some of the students don't survive. So we had to be very careful with how we were going about these heavy subjects also, because in the standards for school, this subject aligned with 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. And it is a subject that they are capable of understanding and comprehending. But we also, when I was writing in second person and playing on that emotion, we had to be careful to walk that line of showing the gravity of the situation and connecting the user to the teacher, while also not steering too much into being dramatic and potentially being traumatizing for somebody. We also include on our website a trigger warning that says the information covers serious topics such as death. So if you feel it's not a good fit for your classroom, then you can make that decision. And we also include at the very end a reflection, which I feel is important to talk about. Why do we learn about sad stories from history? And once again, really bringing that idea home that we're learning about that human experience, and that all throughout history, people have always been people. They've always had the same range of emotions as we have. And by learning about sad things that happened in the past, we can maybe learn how to avoid people feeling those sad things in the future and avoid those situations. So we are very happy with how this turned out, and we're excited to explore more with the scenario builder. But we also have some other places on grounds that we use ThingLink in order to kind of have a mixed reality sort of situation going on. So on exhibit, we have a bird cage that has some taxidermized birds in it. So yes, those are real birds that have since passed away. and they are now in a birdcage that can sing. But to protect the artifact, we can't just have it playing all the time. So we have a QR code that leads to this video that we have on ThingLink. People can actually see and hear what the artifact sounds like and moves like without actually harming the artifact. And we have another place on grounds where we utilized Canva by our chickens, because we put a lot of effort into picking out which chickens were period appropriate, and we wanted to share that information with people. So we have another QR code that leads to this infographic that we made on Canva, and you can click on any of these and then more information will come up about it. So even though we are a historical site, we wanted to make sure that we are utilizing technology as a tool. So sometimes it can be tricky to figure out, like, what is that line if we're a historical museum and we want to incorporate more technologically advanced things. You can use that as a tool and a supplemental information, especially because when you're in the museum world, you're always thinking about what does your visitor connect with, and thinking about how many people today are used to receiving information with technology and are basically glued to their phones. That if you don't take advantage of ways to connect with your visitor through technology, then you're missing opportunities to connect with them and find those hooks that are going to engage them and have them leave with memorable experiences. So with each place, it's going to be different with what you can do, but walking that line of that balance of still making the focus on the subject and on history, but using the tool of technology, because if you use it well and you reflect on it, it's only going to make you better and make for a better experience for your visitors as well. And so we look forward to continuing to see all of the advances that ThingLink is making and hopefully utilizing them ourselves to become the best museum that we can be.
Amazing. And I think I'd just like to add, Louise, that I think it's important to stress, when Louise and I first went through the scenario, it was an incredibly moving, powerful, emotional experience, wasn't it, Louise?
It was, because
really brought to life so well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely phenomenal. And the title of this webinar was about embracing the future and unlocking experiences in museums and galleries. And I can't think of a better example than the one that you've given. It's something that's not either or. It's, you can have that in-person visit. You can have that as well as the in-person visit, which can be reinforced. And so many people are using virtual field trips now to prepare people for the experience so that they can see, where things are before they get there. They don't have that kind of unfamiliarity concerns. But then when you go home and you think about where you've just been, imagine having that experience so that you could relive it. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So huge congratulations to you and the whole team. And we can't thank you enough for coming here and sharing with everybody what you've done. I just wondered if there was any questions. We've had a lovely comment from Walter, who is in Glasgow, and thank you, Walter. Yeah, it's really stimulating to see all of those artifacts being brought together. And of course, some of those artifacts could also be shown in VR headsets as well with the 360 images. So, it's about mixing and matching with virtual reality, extended reality, and I guess mixed reality is when you've got options to be able to use all of these things together. So yeah, I just want to thank you, Marit, who's come and joined us today from Finland. Are there any other questions that have come through? Kyla, I was thinking about the significance of the classroom, and with other museums we know that have got classrooms, and you had spoken to the Highland Folk Museum.
Yeah, I was saying earlier to Carly that this really makes a nice pair with the Highland Folk Museum case study, which we did, I think, a couple of years ago now. But it's a really interesting use of ThingLink in a slightly different way to make their living history museum come alive, because they have so many fragile artifacts and valuable artifacts that they would love to be able to put in situ in their living history museum, But unfortunately, because they are fragile and very old, they can't do that. So instead, they created virtual tours using 360s in ThingLink to put those artifacts within the buildings. So they're there forever, as it were, as a virtual tour, which is a lovely adjunct to the tours you can go on at the museum itself. So that's a really good example of mixed reality.
We've had a question in from Summer, which is about accessibility, and have you had any feedback from users with visual or hearing impairments or any other accessibility requirements?
So we haven't had any feedback specifically to that yet, but it was something that we took into consideration when making this scenario, where we made it all text, so that way everything could be translated and read out loud using the immersive reader add-on. Grand Island has a large amount of students who are English language learners, and so we wanted to make sure that if we were making a program, that it would be accessible to every student in the grade. So we made it so the first virtual classes we made in 2020, there was a lot of video, and then we started realizing that that can't be translated unless we were to film that ourselves. So immersive reader really is amazing, and so that is able to be used the whole way through with every single thing. So we hope that that would help people that did have hearing impairments or other impairments or accessibility issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that particularly when we're planning ThingLinks, certainly Kyla and I make sure that any text is included in immersive reader that might be displayed on the image, but we also make sure that we've got a link that opens up the ThingLink in a web view, so it can be used with screen readers as well, and all the alt text from the images will show in the web view. So Summer, if you want any more information about that, I'd love to chat to you, and you're more than welcome to follow up with me after the webinar. I'm just conscious that we've also got some really big updates, and I'd love to get your perspective, Carly, on how you think these might help with museums and galleries and exhibitions and educators all over, how we can further take those mixed reality experiences one step further. Before we do, Kyla, you just wanted to touch on, we've touched on the Highland Folk Museum, but you also want to mention this one, because I don't think anyone knows our case studies better than Kyla, because she is leading on these.
I can tell you there are two people on this webinar who definitely know this case study a little bit better than me, and that's Sarah and Julie, who I can see in the comments. And yeah, the ROM case study is one of my favorites because it, for so many reasons, it's got a fantastic intro video which kind of brings you into the exhibition of the Great Wales. It's got a great a map to orientate you around, and we were just talking about immersive reader. This one also uses immersive reader in a great way, in that everything is in text boxes so that you can translate that and use the tools within immersive reader. So this is a great example. So we'll be sending out the links after the webinar, so I highly recommend you have a look at this one. It's fantastic.
I was sat in an airport. It was actually in Schiphol, and the main screen in the airport had some of the works of the local museum displayed, so people were interacting with the display, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, the ROM one would just look fantastic on there. So these aren't just things as users, virtual trips or aid memoirs. They could be used to advertise the museums. They could be shared anywhere, couldn't they? Really helping to raise awareness of the work that's being done. And we mentioned the Highland Folk Museum as well, something that's all close to our hearts. It's a local museum close to both Kyla and I up here in Scotland. And as you mentioned, they have this Black House. They also have a school, which is really interesting. Carly, I'm going to send you a link to it. And you can go in and explore all of the little houses and the school, and then see all the... We've started to use ThingLink as a verb here. That's brilliant. And we'll make sure this will all go out to you, so you'll be able to explore.
Hello, we're today at the Helsinki City Museum, which is, by the way, the most popular museum in Helsinki. We're here to try ThingLink's new AR app and show you how it works. Earlier today, we were here to take photos of some of the work, and we also measured their approximate dimensions. Next, on ThingLink, we added a couple of hotspots on select pieces at the exhibition. Now we're going to see how it works. So we at ThingLink built easy-to-use tools for creating interactive learning experiences in both digital and physical environments. If you want to try out our new AR app, make sure to sign up at thinglink.com.
So that's the new AR app which is coming out, and I can give you a little bit more information about how it's actually going to work. So it's available for, well, it will be initially available for iOS. So what you'll be able to do is to go into your phone and download for free the ThingLink AR app. And then all you'll need to do is to enter a number, which will be the catalog number. And that links to a catalog in your ThingLink account with all of the ThingLinks in it. So it'll only work if you put that kind of catalog or that collection number in. And then you'll be able to go up to the objects, hold your phone over the object, and then on your phone will be the ThingLink. So thinking about your birds, taxidermy birds, you'll be able to hold your phone over and then have the ThingLink directly rather than use the QR code. But it just means that you've got an in-person experience, which you'll be able to use with your phone, and then people will be able to access that elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be definitely something that helps escalate things and also just helps with accessibility too, because I noticed how, the text pops up right there. And if there's that immersive reader capability, going back to that, the more we can do for accessibility everywhere, then that's a win-win.
Absolutely. I'm just going to show you all now some of the other features that are coming up. So we've run something like, I think it's about 3 or 4 webinars now, which were to create a dialogue with our community of creators. And we wanted to ask people, what would be the kind of approaches that we should take to AI? What's the kind of AI tools that are out there? And through that dialogue, we realized that we wanted to make sure that people had information about privacy, access, and control. But we also heard that people sometimes want a little bit of help to kind of jumpstart their journey with ThingLink. So on the slides, you'll be able to click here and it will take you to the blog post. And we've also created a ThingLink, which if you click here, you'll be able to see this in action. So the first thing that we've got is that you'll be able to, and you'll see this in action. Actually, it's probably going to be easier if I just go straight into my ThingLink account and show you. So imagine I want to create a project about Edinburgh Castle, and I'm going to use our Unsplash integration to search for an image of Edinburgh Castle. And you can see that there's lots of images there. So I'll just pick this image here and click continue. You've all got this. This is not new. And I'll click continue. But what is new is that you'll see, you'll see this little pop-up here, which says need help creating your first tags. So if I hit on the continue button here, it asks me for a prompt or what my project is about. So my project is about the history of Edinburgh. And I'll just hit continue. Of course, you can put more detail in there if you wanted to. So this AI assistant tool is going to populate your ThingLink with 5 tags for you, which you can edit, you can delete, you can change. But this one, as you can see, has got early history of Edinburgh. It's got about the Industrial Revolution in Edinburgh. It's got about modern day Edinburgh. Here we've got one about it's the capital of Scotland, and then of course the role that it played in World War II. And I didn't script that, it just did it all on its own. So we now have a tool that is going to help you kickstart your creativity with getting going with ThingLink, but we just thought that that was such a nice tool to share with you. The other tools that you'll see linked in the ThingLink, which we have shared with you, is a tool, and I'll just make that big so you can see it there, that it will suggest branches for you of your branching scenario based on your topic. So imagine here that it's actually, we've got AI to suggest branches about the British Museum. Imagine this as a learning experience to help someone be a guide in the British Museum, or we wanted to create a learning resource about the British Museum. Here we've got, it's created all of those branches for us simply by suggesting what your project is going to be about. Now, the other nice thing that it's going to do is that it can also generate questions for you as well. So imagine if you run out of ideas and you want to generate questions based on your topic in your scenario. It can also do that for you as well. You can see here now it's created 5 questions for me, all about the British Museum, and their multiple choice questions, usually where 3 is right and 1 is wrong, and you've got to select all 3. But it's just a way of really getting you started by generating those questions for you. You've probably become familiar with things like ChatGPT and Google Bard and other tools that really help you to create content, create text. And these are things that are starting to show in your documents that you might be using. You might see this in, say, Google Docs, or you might see it in your email where it can generate the email for you. This one can simply write a summary of your ThingLink for you, so your scenario for you. So at the end of the scenario, if you wanted it, it would write that recap for you. And it can also rewrite text in your text block. So that lovely text we saw in Carly's scenario with the images underneath, if you would like this to be rewritten, if you sometimes use your own vernacular and you think, oh, maybe I need to change this a bit and make it more succinct, then it's going to do that for you. So I don't know about you, Carly, but I would have found that really helpful.
Yeah, some of those blocks of text, especially with how many there are and you're just staring at them for so long, just having an AI peer reviewer would have been lovely.
I've just had a question there from Walter, and I just wanted to answer that. So we have our own installation of OpenAI, which is stored on our servers. So none of your questions or your prompts are going to be going back to the large language model. So that's one of the reasons we had that dialogue with our community of creators, and we heard particularly from Scott at Basingstoke College of Technology, and he said, you know, as a director of learning, I'm completely skeptical about things until, you know, I've got that confidence. So as you know, how we've listened to everybody through that dialogue, that's one of the things that we've done. So we still are GDPR compliant. And as an administrator of a ThingLink organization, like a campus or a school, you can actually toggle these on and off for your whole organization. And at the moment, we've not made these available to students. These are just available to teachers and staff in the organization. So I hope that, thanks, Walter. Yeah, it's not just my decision. It really is, you know, our wonderful development team and our CEO and the founder of ThingLink, Ula, and the fact that we've had this dialogue. And if you go to the blog that we've written to announce this, it's got a section on privacy, access and control, and that's exactly why we've done that. And I think when we had those conversations with everyone through the webinars, you know, we were kind of bold enough to say, you know, we're all learning about this. It's so new. So we really want to make sure that, you know, we're putting our hand up and saying, you know, let's talk about this and not rushing into launching AI tools. We wanted to make sure that we got this right. So I hope that helps. But thank you for bringing that up, Walter. And Summer, oh, brilliant, Ohio State. So it's in beta at the moment, and we're launching it to 25% of people who have got the newer accounts, and then making sure that it's all gone smoothly in this rollout. Then we'll go to full rollout. But certainly it's not in beta testing, it's in beta rollout. So we'll let you know as soon as. But what you'll be able to do right now is that you'll be able to disable it for your organization in advance of the rollout if you wanted to do that as well. So you do have that control, because obviously people do want to include things like this in their DPIAs, or they might want to do a new DPIA, and we want to be really open and transparent about that as well. So that's just those updates. Another update, which I am super excited to show you, is that there's going to be a new preview button. So when you click on your three dots, when on your ThingLink, in your ThingLink accounts, it'll have a new preview option. And as you can see from this little video, it's going to go through each of the types of devices that you might think that your audience are going to view it on. So you'll be able to, and I'll just play that again for you so you can see it clearly, and I'll remove myself. So here we have the portrait mode, landscape mode in a mobile, a tablet device in landscape, computer screen, and then I think we've got TV. So you've got all of those options there to preview it, so you've got confidence that whether it's your scenario or whether it's your image, it's going to look absolutely fantastic on any device that your audience are going to be viewing on. But it gets even better. So you're going to be even more blown away by what I'm going to tell you now, because honestly, I was just kind of, I don't know what the expression is, I was just so excited to see this, and that we were actually able to tell people about this. So we know for a long time people have been looking for a solution with the absence of Google Street View camera app. People wanted to create virtual tours or guided tours or 360 experiences. And unless you had a 360 camera, which could be cost prohibitive for some schools, then there was no way to do that unless you had a Google Pixel phone that had the photosphere option. And that's still quite tricky, because you've got to take all the images as though you're inside a fish bowl or a golf ball or something like that. But you get my drift. So we are going to roll out a way, it's an update, where you can simply take a panoramic image, and all phones have got this capacity. So in iPhones, for example, you'll be able to take a panoramic image in 0.5, which is the screen size, the biggest screen size that you can get, and then upload that panoramic image into ThingLink, and we will use our magic to make it into a 360 photosphere, and that will work on any device. So there are no other apps currently anywhere that can do this on any device. So we're really pleased that this is going to completely remove a barrier for educators or students that want to create 360 images. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like very briefly, so you can see how good this is. So this is a guided tour, and if I click on the arrow here, this is actually of a co-working space. And you can see that there is this white line, and we've purposely put that line in white for this demo so you can see where the seam goes together. And I know that's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty close. And then you'll know with a panoramic image, if I take one now with my phone, I'd literally just kind of go around the room like this. And I tested this out this morning. And of course, you don't have to take your ceiling or your floor. So with this, you'll see that this panorama, it has this grey circle at the top. And how we enable this to become a 360 is that we fill in the top and the bottom for you. And as I mentioned, that can be for any mobile device. So I'm really pleased that that's coming. Super excited. I know it's brilliant news, James. And Gina's just said that's excellent news as well. Yeah, we're just really pleased. Walter, your tech goes from strength to strength. I think that's meant to be. So yeah, we're just delighted that we can remove this barrier for everyone and just keep progressing, really. So it's down to me now to bring Kyla back on the screen and say, I think it's about time we found a winner. So people have been filling out the form, and you've got access to a sheet with all of the entries on. So how many entries do we have on our form? And this is to win access to the School Children's Blizzard, the actual scenario, so that you can explore it, play around with it, and just see how fantastic it is. I should say that Carly and Stuhr Museum have created a really nice way to monetize this. So you can pay $25 and have it for your classroom. And what they actually do is clone the scenario and send you a cloned link. And then if that expires, then they can just delete the cloned ThingLink scenario that they've created. And of course, then that expires for the person that had paid for it. So we've actually paid Carly and the museum to have access to this because we really want you to have a look at it, but also we want to show how clever they've been enabled to monetizing this as well. So Kyla, how many entries have we got?
So we've had 16 entries. So excellent. Carly, if you could choose a number between 2 and 17, because
let's pick lucky 13.
Oh,
okay, let's go and check out who's number 13. That's Gina.
Yay!
Congratulations, Gina.
Well done, Gina.
I presume it's the same Gina that is here now. I don't know if we've got two Ginas, but I'm presuming, Gina, you've won access. So I'll email you after the webinar, and then you'll be able to explore it all. Yay! We're delighted. So we have only got a couple of minutes left. We will be having another webinar on the 12th of July, where Kyla and I are going to be going just through those 4 features in a lot more depth, and then there'll be lots of Q&A, and we'll have more information about how they all work and when they're going to be rolling out. I just had to mention that we had those features coming on this webinar. I think if they hadn't given me the green light, I probably would have let something slip anyway, because they're just so good. And also, I think that's just, now we've got a minute or so to say thank you so much for joining us. Any last thoughts from the team here today?
Just thank you again for having me, and thank you everyone for your excitement, and congrats about our program. We're very excited, and we're excited to see what other people do with it.
We can't thank you enough. It's just been a real pleasure to hear you talk with such passion about the work as well. And that's the first time I think I've heard anyone really emphasize the human connection to history. And yeah, that just gives me goosebumps, I think. So it's just down to say thanks ever so much. Do come and join our webinar on the 12th of July. We've been delighted to see so many of you here today. And if you're watching on the Action Replay, thank you for watching this, and you'll get the email with all of the links afterwards. So it's goodbye from us, but thank you so much, and thank you to Carly and of course Kyla, who's managed to join us with a puppy underneath her desk, and it's been very, very good.
It's been a bit of a struggle at times, but yeah.
Thanks ever so much, everyone. Take
Thanks,
care.
Andy. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye all.